Okay, so getting right into it today, we're diving deep on something that's going to be pretty important, I think, especially for those of you out there prepping for the UPSC exams.
Oh, absolutely. Big implications for sure.
It's all about these new regulations the University Grants Commission, the UGC has just put out.
Yeah, I saw those.
It has to do with how academic qualifications, the ones you get from foreign institutions,
Right.
how those are going to be recognized here in India.
It's a pretty fundamental shift, actually.
And this isn't just some, behind the scenes admin stuff. These changes could really shake things up in the bigger picture of India's education system.
Definitely. And that's something you want to keep in mind for current affairs, especially for the UPSC.
Couldn't agree more. So today, let's unpack these new recognition and grant of equivalence to qualifications obtained from foreign educational institutions regulations 2025.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Catchy, right?
Mm,
We're calling them the 2025 UGC regulations for short.
much better.
Basically, we're going to break down what exactly is changing. Why are they changing it now? And the big one, what does it all mean? What are the implications?
Sounds good. Where are we starting?
Well, we're basing this deep dive mainly on some great reporting from the Indian Express.
Oh, good choice.
They got a really good job breaking it all down.
Always solid on education policy.
All right, so first off, the big news. Come April 2025, the UGC itself is going to be directly responsible for recognizing these foreign degrees,
Right, taking over from the Association of Indian Universities.
the AIU.
Exactly. So, what do you think is the real key takeaway from this shift? I mean, for people to understand, why does it matter?
Well, it seems like a pretty decisive move toward like a more centralized system, right?
Oh, definitely. And I think the key here is that it's a more legally grounded system. The AIU played a big role, of course, in coordinating between universities.
Sure.
But, they didn't really have the same kind of clout, that statutory authority that the UGC has.
Being a government body and all
Right. Set up directly by an act of parliament.
makes a difference.
So this shift to the UGC, it's basically like the government stepping in and saying, okay, we're taking direct control and we're going to standardize this whole process.
Interesting.
And it lines up perfectly with the whole push for internationalization in the National Education Policy, the NEP 2020.
So it's like India trying to match up its recognition standards with the global norms, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Making it easier for people with qualifications from other countries to come to India and have those qualifications actually mean something.
Smoother transitions.
Yep. Okay, so we've talked about the who. Now, what about the what? What exactly are we talking about when we say qualifications? Is this just like your typical university degrees?
Right. Good question.
It's actually broader than that. We're talking about, academic degrees for sure,
Yeah.
bachelor's, master's, PhDs.
The usual suspects.
But it also includes diplomas and certificates from foreign institutions, even stuff from offshore campuses.
So hold on. Like if someone does a degree at let's say a UK university, but on their campus in like Singapore,
Right.
that would now be under these new UGC rules for recognition in India.
Exactly.
Got it. So it's not just where the main university is, but where you actually did the program. And are these UGC recognized qualifications? What are they actually good for within India? What can people use them for?
Okay, so this is important for anyone listening who might be thinking of studying abroad. These qualifications will be your ticket to getting into higher education institutions here.
Makes sense.
If you want to do more studies in India, they're also going to be essential for research opportunities in India and for jobs, of course, in any field where having a recognized qualification is a must-have.
So it affects a lot of different areas.
It really does, streamlining things across the board.
Now, are there any types of qualifications that these rules don't apply to? Any exceptions people should be aware of?
Good point. There are some. So professional qualifications, things like, medicine, law, pharmacy.
Right. Those highly specialized fields.
Those are governed by their own councils, their own statutory bodies.
So they have their own systems for recognizing foreign credentials.
Exactly. The UGC rules don't touch those. But here's an interesting thing. School-level qualifications from abroad are actually included.
Really?
Yeah, but specifically for the purpose of getting into undergrad programs here in India.
Okay, so like if someone finishes high school in another country,
Right, and they've done a total of 12 years of schooling.
then those qualifications would be considered for entry into an Indian university under these UGC rules.
Precisely.
Got it. Okay, so That clarifies things on the school front, too. All right, let's get to the heart of it, shall we? What does a foreign qualification need to have to actually be recognized under this new system? What are the UGC's criteria?
All right, so this is all about quality control, making sure the standards are up to par. There are a few key things the UGC is looking at. Number one, the foreign institution that gave you the qualification. It has to be recognized by the accreditation authorities in its own country. Like, they need to be legit where they come from.
That makes sense. Makes it easier to verify.
Exactly. The second thing is the entry requirements for the program you did.
Right. What you needed to have to even get into the program.
Exactly. Things like, prior qualifications, how many credits you had to take, whether there was a thesis involved, internships, all that. That's got to be pretty comparable to similar programs here in India.
Keeping things roughly equivalent.
Yeah. They don't want to be recognizing degrees that are, like, way easier to get than what Indian students have to go through. And finally, the UGC wants to make sure that you actually did the program properly,
Followed all the rules.
Yeah. No cutting corners or anything.
Sounds thorough.
They're trying to be thorough, for
Fine.
sure.
Now, what about distance learning and online degrees? That's become a lot more common. What's the UGC stance on those, especially from foreign institutions?
Oh, that's a big one. And it shows how things are changing. It's a pretty big shift from earlier versions of these regulations, actually.
So what's the deal? Are they accepted?
They are. Degrees from distance or fully online programs from a recognized foreign institution, of course. Those are now eligible for recognition.
That's a pretty big change.
It is. I mean, it really shows they're acknowledging that online education is a legitimate thing, a big part of the global education landscape now.
Times are changing.
Definitely.
But I also read somewhere that degrees from something called franchise arrangements, those aren't going to be recognized.
Right.
What's the thinking behind excluding those?
Okay, so imagine a situation where, like, an institution here in India is using the name of a foreign university, like they're a franchise. But they may not actually have a real academic connection to that university. The curriculum might be different, the quality of teaching, the standards for assessment, all of that. It's a bit like brand licensing, but in education.
Interesting.
The UGC is basically trying to avoid recognizing qualifications from these kinds of setups.
Where the quality might be iffy.
Exactly. It's a safeguard against, potentially dodgy educational offerings. They want to see a real academic link to a recognized institution in its home country, not just the name.
Makes sense.
Right.
So let's say someone has a foreign degree and they want to get it recognized. What do they actually have to do? What's the process like under these new rules?
Okay, so the good news is the process is meant to be a lot smoother and faster.
That's good to hear.
The UGC is going to have a dedicated online portal.
Makes sense.
So you go on there, submit all your documents, all the details about your qualification and the institution that gave it to you.
Seems straightforward enough.
Yeah, and then a standing committee of subject matter experts, they'll evaluate your application. Well, they're aiming to get that evaluation done within 10 working days.
Not too bad.
Nope. And then the UGC says they'll let you know their decision within 15 days of when you first submitted your application.
So in theory, the whole process could be wrapped up in less than a month.
Potentially, yeah, which is a big improvement.
Definitely. Much faster than things used to be. And what happens if someone's application is rejected? Can they appeal or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. That's important.
For fairness.
Exactly. If you're rejected, you can appeal the decision. There's a review committee that will look at your case again. And if the UGC does grant you an equivalence certificate, that certificate is going to be valid all over India for any academic or professional purpose at any UGC-regulated institution.
So it's a pretty comprehensive recognition.
It is.
So let's step back for a minute and talk about the bigger picture. Why is the UGC taking this on now? Why the shift from the AIU? What's the reasoning behind this move?
As we said before, the AIU did important work, but the old system, it wasn't really set in stone, legally speaking.
It wasn't as formal.
Right. And that sometimes led to inconsistencies in how things were done, sometimes delays, of course.
Right.
So by stepping in, the UGC wants to bring more accountability, make everything more transparent, and really importantly, make sure that this whole recognition process is working in harmony with the national education reforms.
Especially the NEP 2020.
Exactly, with all its goals about making education more international.
Right. And who do you think is going to benefit most from these changes? It sounds like a lot of people are involved.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, think about Indian students who've gone abroad for their studies.
Mm,
When they come back to India, this new process, being smoother and more predictable, will help them a lot.
getting back into the Indian system.
Exactly, whether they want to study more or, find a job.
Right. What about for Indian universities themselves?
Well, for them, it's going to be a lot easier to assess foreign qualifications now.
With a clear set of rules.
Right, and that could lead to more international students coming to India, which would be great.
Boost academic exchange.
Exactly. And then there are employers.
Mm-hmm.
For them, these UGC equivalent certificates are going to be a clear way to know that someone's foreign degree is the real deal.
Simplifies the verification process.
For sure. And on top of all that, the fact that they're recognizing online learning, and degrees from offshore campuses,
Right.
that just shows they're being more realistic about how education is changing globally.
More inclusive, you mean?
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like the UGC is really trying to balance a couple of things here, right? They want to make things more inclusive, more internationally focused, but also make sure that the quality of Indian higher education doesn't suffer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They want to keep those standards high. And they're doing that by making sure they're only recognizing degrees from institutions that are already recognized in their own countries.
That accreditation thing we talked about.
Yep. And by specifically saying no to those franchise arrangements.
Right, where the quality control might not be there.
Exactly. Plus, that appeals process, having that review committee, that helps build trust in the system, make sure everyone has a fair shot.
So overall, it sounds like these new UGC regulations are a pretty big deal.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a major change in how India is going to deal with foreign academic qualifications going forward.
More streamlined, more transparent, aligned with the national education goals.
And a definite move away from the AIU and towards the UGC taking charge.
And this has implications for, well, basically everyone involved.
Yeah. Students, universities, employers, it touches them all. And, the inclusion of online learning and the exclusion of those franchise arrangements, it shows they're being thoughtful about quality.
Trying to strike that balance.
Exactly.
And for all of you listening out there who are, on the UPSC path,
Yes.
understanding policy shifts like this, especially within the education system, is super important. It gives you that deeper understanding of what's happening in India, socially, economically, politically.
And that's all part of your UPSC syllabus.
Absolutely, both for prelims and mains. So definitely keep up with these kinds of changes, like the ones we're talking about today. And the Indian Express is a great source for that.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, I've got one last thought for you to chew on.
Right, Hibby?
Think about how this increased recognition of international qualifications could change the way talent flows between India and other countries,
Interesting.
in the next few years. Do you think this is going to open up new opportunities? Or maybe create some challenges we haven't thought of yet? It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
It's a complex issue, lots of moving parts.
For sure.
Great point to ponder, though. Now, if you found this deep dive on the new UGC regulations helpful for your understanding of current affairs, especially as they relate to your UPSC preparation, please do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
And don't forget to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below.
We're always looking for new topics to explore in our deep dives, things that'll help you on your UPSC journey.
We love hearing from you.
So keep those comments coming. And if you want to read more about these regulations, our primary source for this episode was the Indian Express. So check them out.
Until next time.
See you then.